Hello everyone, I'm Jonathan Brendefur from the Developing Mathematical Thinking Institute, and today I want to give you an overview on teaching or learning geometry. Geometry and spatial reasoning are inherently important because it's about living in and understanding the space around us, both two-dimensional and three-dimensional. And spatial reasoning is also one of the best predictors of later success in math. The better your spatial reasoning is, the better you're going to be at high school level mathematics, and in different STEM fields you need that. What is it? Well, spatial reasoning can come down to decomposing, breaking things apart, composing them back together, maybe in a different way, rotating them, seeing how things fit together. So spatial reasoning, really a key important idea, and it's a part of geometry. I want you to also think about geometry is so important to us, and it actually should be laying the groundwork for understanding measurement and understanding number later. And geometry itself, the etymology, where does the word come from? Geo, like geography, geology, means world, and metry means to measure. So geometry means to measure the world around us. And it comes down to two so we call them structural ideas or structural components: space and shape. So these are the two things when you're teaching geometry that you should be thinking about. So we're going to start off with very young kids, 4-year-olds, all the way up, or even less than 4. And the space around us. How do we measure the space? How do we measure two-dimensional, three-dimensional space? Maneuvering, really critical ideas. For young kids, how do we maneuver? How do we go forward, back, right, left? How do we locate certain things? Later, it's coordinate systems. It's also longitude and latitude. So just how do we maneuver in space? It's a really critical idea within geometry. And also the boundaries of what's the boundaries within our 2 dimensions, 1 dimension, 2 dimensions, 3 dimensions. It goes into non-Euclidean geometry as well. That's for much later. But just understanding the boundary within the space that we're trying to address. And then the other structural component is shape. So what are the attributes and properties of the shape? So trying to ask our young kids, the triangle, what is the property of triangles? We have a number of different videos that go into those ideas, from 2-dimensional shapes to 3-dimensional shapes. Then it's also, how do we decompose and how do we compose the different shapes? How do we break them apart, put back together? Those are really critical ideas. And it moves into ideas of formulas and numbers. So thinking about geometry first and then number. For example, you have the area of a rectangle, so the base times the height. And if you imagine a rectangle, and if that's the area equals the base times the height, then what about the area of a triangle? The area of a triangle, half times the base times the height. Well, where do you see that? If I actually decompose this by its diagonal, and then you, again, go over to the maneuvering part of this idea, is I can rotate this around. So part of the maneuvering also is called translations later, which is how do you reflect something, how do you rotate it, and then how do you translate it or slide it over. So in this case, I could decompose this, partition in half, rotate it around, it fits there, so you can see where the area of a triangle is actually related to the area of rectangle. So this idea of decomposing, composing just shapes fits in a lot of different areas all the way through the system. And then finally, with shape, it's also about congruence and similarity. How are different shapes similar? Just the artwork, as you look around the place, you see lots of different similar shapes. And then also congruency. So where you can imagine a shape here as a triangle. So if this one is congruent, or these are similar, this one is congruent. So it's this scale, and it's growing it larger, growing it smaller, which gets into ideas of ratio and proportion later on. So you can see geometry is really an amazing topic within mathematics, and should be the forefront how we start. And when you're teaching it, be thinking about spatial reasoning, and then the structure of both the space around us and then also shape. So you can see all of our different types of lessons and activities all structure around these components here. So hopefully that was helpful for the overview for geometry, and you can jump in and start watching some videos and doing some different activities. Thanks.